So, Wall Street Journal has an article on Apple Maps, and you won't believe the title of the article, which is quote unquote, people have begun to love Apple's most hated product. And the product in question is Apple Maps. Apple Maps was launched in 2012 because Apple was unable to renew the contract with Google. The original iPhone had the Maps app, which was made by Apple, but the backend data was supplied by Google Maps. I believe it was a 5-year contract, and when Apple wanted to renew the contract, Google demanded more data of iPhone users, to which Apple did not agree. So the result was Apple parted with Google and created its own Apple Maps. And Google Maps was moved to App Store. For anyone who bought iPhone after 2012, the default map app pre-installed on the iPhone was Apple Maps. And if they wanted Google Maps, they had to go to the App Store and download it. So when Apple Maps was launched in 2012, it was a big fiasco. Apple is one of those companies that has very loyal users. And when Apple introduces a great feature, these users flood the social media with good comments raving about the new feature. However, this is a double-edged sword because if the product is bad, then the same users will put endless posts on social media making fun of it. When the Apple Maps was launched, the bridges on Apple Maps were melting. Some of the directions led to nowhere, and all of these things were mocked and reported on social media. Apple Maps launch was so bad that Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, had to apologize to Apple customers. And the bad launch of Apple Maps could be one among the many reasons why Apple's software head, Scott Forstall, had to leave the company. Google Maps is one of the most beloved products used by billions, and because of that, Google saw no urgency to make Google Maps as better as it could. However, one thing Google forgot is that Apple is a very tenacious company. From 2012 till 2023, that is 11 years, Apple has been constantly making Apple Maps a little better and better and better every year. As we have noticed with iPhone and Tesla, that it is very hard to beat a good product that is constantly improved by the company year over year because it has a early mover advantage. Google Maps had that early movers advantage. Now let's do a brainstorming to find out in what circumstances that the early mover advantage could be lost. So let's make a list. Let's say Google Maps was the candidate that has an early mover's advantage, and in what circumstances would something better than Google Maps come and threaten Google Maps' position? First reason would be that the parent company loses interest in the product. And from what I can think and what I can see, Google has lost much of its interest in Google Maps. Google has the habit of losing interest in its products. One of my friend is an Android developer, and she claims that Google doesn't care as much about Android as it used to do it. Every year Apple has something called WWDC, Worldwide Developers Conference, and Google also has Google I/O. In Worldwide Developer Conference, Apple introduces the next version of next version of iOS, and they are very proud to display all the new features that will be coming in their next operating system. All those features are thought very carefully and implemented very meticulously. In the case of Google I/O conference, the feeling is Android is not as important as the other things that Google is doing in the field of artificial intelligence, and Android developers sometimes feel a little left out. And it looks like since Google Maps was the monopoly, nothing was better than Google Maps, there could be a possibility that Google might have paid little less attention to Google Maps. What are the reasons other than parent company not paying attention? How about the competitor of Google Maps has unlimited money and is willing to spend unlimited money? Well, we all know Apple has more money than God, and they are willing to spend as much money as possible because they have identified Apple Maps as one of the tentpole features of iPhone. What else? Let's say the competitor is tenacious, patient, diligent, and relentless, and keeps making the Maps product better and better and better every year. Well, we just described Apple and Apple Maps. That is what happened in last 13 years. What else can we think about? How about that same company has loyal customers who are willing to give the product a second try? Apple has loyal customers. And what if the same competitor owns one of the major operating system platform for phones and has an advantage of pre-installing the app on the phones? Guess what? Apple Maps comes pre-installed on iPhone. So this is the reason why Wall Street Journal has published an article saying that some of the users might have started loving Apple Maps. Also, since Apple Maps is made by Apple, it can be deeply integrated with the iPhone operating system, which is also made by Apple. Now, Google does not get that advantage. Google Maps can be baked deep inside the Android operating system that Google owns, but Google Maps cannot do the same thing in the iPhone, which means, for example, let's say if you are at the airport, your iPhone knows that you are at the airport, which means iOS can send you a notification of Apple Maps telling you to discover places to shop and restaurants to eat inside the airport, which Google Maps cannot do it. I'm not going to get into whether this is fair or unfair, but this is the reality. Since Google controls Android and Google Maps, it can bake Google Maps into Android operating system, and Apple can do the same thing with iOS operating system and Apple Maps. Obviously, Apple Maps is not perfect, but Apple has identified it to be one of the tentpole features of iPhone, and it will keep on pouring hundreds of millions of dollars in coming years into making Apple Maps better. Now, Google is no slouch. Google also has billions and billions of dollars and can match Apple dollar for dollar into making Google Maps app also better. But the real question to ponder is, can Google match the commitment and enthusiasm and craftsmanship and care that Apple puts into its Maps app? Can Google give the same attention to Google Maps like Apple is giving the attention to Apple Maps? Or will Google be distracted with the new competition coming from OpenAI and Bing that wants to eat Google's lunch in the field of search? Well, time will tell. Also, it is important to realize that we are just debating with Apple Maps. Also, it is important to realize that we are just debating whether Apple Maps is number one or Google Maps is number one. For the rest of the companies who have dreams in the field of maps, they better aim for number 3, because I don't think number 1 and number 2 are going to change. Hundreds of millions of dollars invested in Apple Maps is funded by iPhone sales, and hundreds of millions of dollars invested in Google Maps is funded by Google search. No other company in the world has the margins coming in from the blockbuster product like Apple's iPhone or Google's search. Some companies are trying to do something in the field of maps, but I am sorry to say they will have to be satisfied with number 3, because number 1 and number 2 have been claimed by these two Silicon Valley tech giants for the foreseeable future.